You actually thought you could afford something in here.
That's hilarious.
Even in your next life, you could never afford my bag. Those words sliced through the crowded cafe like a blade. Laughter followed. But what no one in that room knew was that the quiet man she mocked had once risked his life for strangers. And the truth about him was about to turn that laughter into stunned silence. Even in your next life, you cannot afford my bag. The woman's laughter was bright and sharp, echoing through the quiet cafe as people turned to look. Her polished nails rested on a designer purse placed carefully on the marble table as if it were a trophy. Across from her sat a thin man in simple clothes. His shirt was clean, but faded. His shoes were worn at the edges. A small backpack rested by his chair, the kind people carried when they owned very little. The man did not react. He simply looked at her with calm eyes. The cafe had fallen silent. Cups paused halfway to lips. A waiter stood still near the counter. Everyone had heard the insult, and everyone waited to see what the poor man would do. But the man named Armand only lowered his gaze and gently folded his hands. He said nothing. That silence made the woman laugh even louder. Her name was Laura Whitmore, a social media celebrity known for luxury fashion, expensive brands, and a lifestyle that many people watched online with fascination. To her, the world was simple. People were either impressive or invisible. And the quiet man in front of her clearly belonged in the second category. She leaned back in her chair, smiling proudly at the attention. "Look at him," she said to the people around her. "He asked if we could be friends." Some customers chuckled nervously. Others looked uncomfortable but remained quiet. Armand still did not speak. But if anyone had looked closely at his eyes, they would have noticed something unusual. Not anger. Not shame. Only patience. Because the truth about Armand was something the room could not yet imagine. Years earlier, long before worn shoes and quiet lunches in small cafes, Armand had lived a life that most people only read about in news reports. He had been a rescue pilot, a man who flew into places others ran away from, storms, fires, floods, where chaos lived. Armand flew. The smell of burning fuel, the roar of helicopters, the cries of frightened people trapped on rooftops or mountainsides, those sounds had once been the music of his life. He remembered the cold wind hitting his face as he hovered over flooded towns. He remembered gripping the hands of strangers who thought they were about to die. He remembered the weight of their fear and the quiet relief when they realized someone had come. Armand had never cared about fame. For him, the greatest reward had always been simple. A child hugging their mother after rescue, an old man whispering thank you, a stranger saying you saved my life. But rescue work was never gentle. One winter night, during a violent mountain storm, Armand's helicopter crashed while trying to save a group of hikers trapped in deep snow. The impact broke bones. The cold nearly took his life. And although he survived, his flying career ended forever. The hospital room had smelled of disinfectant and quiet disappointment. Doctors spoke softly. You will walk again, they told him, but flying is no longer possible. For a man whose life had lived above the clouds, the words felt like gravity itself had doubled. After that day, Armand disappeared from the world that once praised him. No headlines, no television interviews, just a small life in a quiet city. And a man who had once been a hero now lived like a shadow. But there was one thing Armand never lost: dignity. Back in the cafe, Lara continued speaking loudly. "Honestly," she said, "people like him should not even try to sit with people like me." Her fingers brushed the designer bag again. This bag cost more than his entire life. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, yet no one spoke. The room had chosen silence. Armand lifted his eyes slowly and looked at her. His expression was calm, almost kind, but behind that calm lived memories of storms, fire, and courage that most people would never understand. He simply nodded once, then reached for his cup of tea. The gesture confused Lara. She expected anger. She expected embarrassment. But instead, she saw something far more unsettling: peace, and peace made mockery feel strangely small. One of the waiters stepped closer, unsure whether to intervene, but Lara waved him away. "Let him stay," she said. "This is entertaining." Her friends laughed softly. Across the room, an elderly man who had been reading a newspaper slowly lowered it, his eyes fixed on Armand. For a long moment he studied the quiet man. Then something changed in his expression recognition. The old man stood slowly and walked closer. Armand noticed him, but remained silent. The elderly man's voice was gentle but steady. "Are you Captain Armand Hale?" The cafe froze. Lara blinked in confusion. Armand sighed softly. It had been years since anyone used that name. He gave a small nod. The old man's face filled with emotion. "You saved my daughter during the coastal storm 5 years ago. She was trapped on a hospital roof. You flew through winds no one else dared to enter. My family still talks about that day." The room grew very quiet. Armand lowered his eyes again. "Just doing my job," he said softly. But the old man shook his head. "No, you gave my family another lifetime." And suddenly the silence in the cafe felt different. People looked at Armand again, but now they looked closer. The calm posture, the quiet strength, the way he never reacted to insults. Lara frowned. She glanced at her phone quickly, typing something. Moments later, her expression changed. Her search results had appeared: old news photos, rescue missions, helicopters above raging storms. And there he was, the same man sitting across from her, Captain Armand Hale. A pilot who had saved dozens of lives before losing everything in one mission. Her laughter disappeared, but the shift in power had only begun, because the elderly man was not the only person in that cafe who remembered. Near the entrance, another man stood up. Then another. One by one, 3 strangers approached the table, each with the same look of respect. One spoke quietly. "You pulled me from a burning building after the factory explosion." Another added softly, "You found my brother during the mountain rescue." The cafe no longer felt like a place of casual conversation. It felt like a room filled with witnesses to something far greater than wealth. Lara's hand slowly moved away from her designer bag. Her voice came out weaker now. I did not know." Armand looked at her calmly. His eyes held no anger, only truth. He spoke gently. "Real value is not carried in bags. It is carried in the lives we help lift." The words settled over the room like quiet thunder. Someone near the counter whispered something. Then something remarkable happened. People began standing, one by one. A barista, a student, a businessman, even the waiter. Not loudly, not dramatically, just standing in silent respect. Lara felt her face grow warm. For the first time that day, she realized how small her earlier laughter had been. Armand slowly stood as well. He picked up his simple backpack. The elderly man reached out and shook his hand with both of his. "There are not many heroes like you left in this world," he said. Armand smiled gently. "Heroes are simply people who choose courage when fear arrives." He paused for a moment, then added a line that many in the room would remember forever. "True worth is quiet. It does not need to prove itself." With that, he walked calmly toward the exit. No dramatic gesture. No anger, only quiet dignity. The cafe remained standing as he passed. Not because he demanded respect, but because respect had risen naturally. And behind him, Lara Whitmore sat very still. Her expensive bag still rested on the table. But it suddenly looked very different. Not impressive, just heavy. The weight of a lesson she would never forget. Because that day she discovered something the internet rarely teaches. A person's value cannot be measured by the price of what they carry. It is measured by the lives they lift when no one is watching. And sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the greatest story of courage. If this story moved you, share in the comments where you are watching from. Tell us if you believe true strength is often hidden behind silence. And subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us to respect the unseen battles people carry every day.